Welcome to the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast, episode 16. Today we're talking about the expectations of being a cosplayer. The expectation that goes into the output, the expectation that goes into who you are as a cosplayer and what you have to do and what's expected of you. And I'm not going to hit everything. I'm not going to hit on probably a lot of the points that anybody who has all the tribal information in their head right now saying, oh no, that's not really how it is. That's not what we expect. We expect this other list of things. So I will probably get this wrong, but it is something that I'm going to say about the expectations that come up around what you have to do and just some of the ridiculousness that gets into your own head as you are starting to create these things to then share with the rest of the world at that convention, which is what it's all about. An interesting thing that I read recently went as far as to say that it isn't whether or not you dress up when you go to the convention, it's actually expected that you do, which is really interesting to think about. That, yeah, if you're looking to even go to these anymore, that you better wear a costume. Like, I don't know if I agree with that, but it does, like, that feeling. It's not like I've gone to a ton of conventions because they're really expensive and generally I have to travel for them from where I'm located. So the more travel that's involved, and I'm not really big on driving 2 and 3 hours in a day, and I don't like to pull all-nighters because I'm old and that's just not something that I can really deal with. I don't have a lot of roommates that I can stay with, and certainly this isn't going to be something that I'm going to want to take a bunch of equipment on the road with me to go and do constantly, because it's not really a form of income in the sense of it's not replacing my income. If it's not doing any of those things, I'm not going to be really running out, which again is part of the expectation, is that you show up a lot if you are going to be into this. Like, you're all in on presenting yourself at local cons constantly over and over again, that you're going to the events, a lot of events, not just here and there, not just twice a year, not just once in a while. Support the group, you support the community of cosplayers, that you do this on a very regular basis. That's a crazy expectation for most people, especially people who are like casual or on the fence about whether or not they really want to get into this. Just like with everything else, I mean, once you start to get into martial arts, for example, it becomes lots more than just a twice a week thing. At least it did for me. It became an everyday thing. It became a training my brains out thing. It became a lot of teaching. It became a lot of learning. It became a lot of expansion into other arts. And I really wanted to do that. I wanted to be an instructor with a studio. That's who I wanted to be. But there were expectations. How do you break down the barriers of entry to becoming a cosplayer? One of the things that I hear over and over again, especially by motivational speakers, what I hear from motivational speakers is be so good that they can't ignore you. I bet Steve Martin says that. It sounds like something that Steve Martin would say. And there are probably a lot of famous people who say this. Be so good they can't ignore you, which means get good at whatever it is that you do. And what does that even mean? What does it mean to be good at something? What does it mean to have a skill developed? Well, the market will tell you when you're good. You will get a lot of reach. You will have a lot of people commenting and liking on posts. But while you're getting good, just create. Create a lot. Create content that people will see. Create content that people will not. Just create. Doesn't matter. If you are a creator and cosplay is your creative thing, it's the thing that you do, it's what you want the most, you can develop any way that you like. Find out what you do like about it and what you don't, what you're good at and what you're not, where your skills lie and where you need to improve. If you really want to break into it, if you really want it to be that thing that you do, that you are known for, that be the one thing that nobody else can be in that space. Anybody can be Batman, anybody can be Green Lantern, anybody can put the costume on. It's who you are when you wear it that makes the difference. It's who you are when you put it together that makes the difference. It's who you present yourself as throughout the whole process of creating. That's the art form And well, I don't know. Do you really want to call it an art form? You can if you want to. That's preference. Some people would say no, it isn't. It's not art. You're wearing a costume. You're going to a convention. That's not art. You can create art with it. You can be creative inside of that space. That's the space you want to, inside of your fandom, inside of the world of comic books, inside of the world of movies, inside of the world of special effects. That's where you're comfortable. That's who you want to be. So it becomes a space for you to get better at something. What else do people always say? They always say everybody starts at zero. Online influencers, people that you see on your Instagram, everybody's bad at something. But just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at everything. Nobody is. Maybe I'm great at marketing. I'm not a doctor, so I can't perform surgery. And there's a lot of doctors who aren't even good at surgery. They're good at something else inside that field. So even within the world of cosplay, maybe I'm really good at one, but not so great at the other. Maybe DC is my thing. Marvel isn't. For whatever reason, I just don't get it. I just don't resonate with that. I like Marvel. I like all the characters inside of it. Avengers are awesome. X-Men, I think, could be developed better, but they're just really hard to cosplay. I mean, in my opinion, there's a lot of opinion about, how far can you go with one versus the other. But I think that DC, as far as cosplay, and again, I'm going a little bit down the rabbit hole outside of expectations, but it is your expectation for that brand, for that cosplay. It's your expectation of what you're going to be able to bring with Dr. Fate versus what you're going to be able to bring with Doctor Strange. Maybe you're just not a Doctor Strange inside of you. Maybe you're a Guy Gardner. Haven't seen much of those. Or a Booster Gold for just obscurity. There's things that are cool that you might just want to try out, and maybe no one ever sees it. Maybe you just try it out. You go, didn't work. Or maybe you go, yeah, it was really cool. Everything you do moves towards something. Everybody starts learning. That's just how we are. We learn and we improve. You don't have to be a duplicate of an actor. You don't have to be a stunt double. You don't have to be in the greatest shape. Although I did see a video recently of people cosplaying as the soldiers from 300. And yeah, I will never be able to do that cosplay. At my age, at my health and my fitness level, if I'm working towards something, if I'm with fitness, that's good enough for me. But it's also, it cancels out a few cosplays for me. So yeah, some do require you to be in better shape than others, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything, or that you can't even do that one. Why not just put the Spartan outfit on, see how you feel doing it, and don't worry about what other people think about you doing it. It depends on how authentic do you want it to be for you, and how realistic do you want it to be when you're inside of that character, and what are you characterizing, and how are you connecting with people around you and your audience and the community. There's just all these different things that you think about with the expectation of a certain cosplay. As far as looking differently or fitting into a role, I mean, actors do it all the time. Actors gain weight for certain roles. They lose weight for others. They get into better shape, like Chris Hemsworth had to for Thor. Even when you think about Superman, different people have played that part completely differently and in completely different shapes, that the shape that they were in fit for the role for the time. Or even looking at different people who played the Joker, or just different people, or even Spider-Man, and the kind of shape that those actors got into in order to play those roles. Now, do we have to do that because we're not making millions of dollars? We're not actors. We're aspiring to do something with this, to connect with the fandom, to express the art. But what do we really expect from ourselves, and what do other people expect from us to just do that? So does it always have to be a contest? I've talked about this in Judgment and in prior episodes about how competitive cosplay has gotten and how competitive it continues to be. When you're looking at the expectations for both yourself and what your audience is expecting, what your fan base is expecting, what the people looking at these characterizations and looking at the cosplays are expecting, that you start from a place of overwhelm. Like you're completely overwhelmed with it. You're like, holy crap, like I have to create all this stuff. All the props have to be perfect. The costume has to be perfect. Nothing can be out of place. And everybody's going to be super judgmental of me. And it's going to be really weird walking out of my hotel room and down to the convention. And it's just going to be awkward. And I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start with making a costume. I don't know how to buy one. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Like, where do I even begin? There's so much into creating, into putting yourself out there. It's overwhelming. Putting together collaborations or, something that you need to compare or to keep score with that metric. How to get better at costuming, how to get better at applying makeup so that it looks more realistic for that persona. Always being on and high energy at a convention, regardless of what you're there to promote. So if I'm there to promote a podcast, I have to put on this sort of song and dance about really being like a radio personality, which I know I'm not. But that's the expectation. It's like, oh, well, this person does a podcast, so they must be really dynamic, and they sit there and they emote to their microphone, and they have a radio voice, and they're a radio personality. So of course they always have something witty to say, and nothing is staged or scripted, and and on it goes. There's media scrutiny. There's the outreach pieces of it. There's what people think about selling out. There's how to even make money with any of it. So there's a lot that can happen when you're just starting, and there's a lot that could go on. Like, it's a long game, like with anything that you might try and get into, especially in media, because at its core, and in my belief, cosplay is an extension of media. You may not believe that. You don't have to buy into that. That's fine. But when you put the costume on and you go to the convention and you're helping out these industries, you're in front of Marvel Studios and you're selling their product. You're selling Disney's product. That you are an extension of media, because you are using social media in order to generate fandom, in order to gain influence somehow, like whatever the game is, whatever the goal is that you are working towards, that you are in media to some degree. And that can be very confusing, especially if you haven't studied it, especially if you haven't been in it before. It's hard to break into, whether you've done stage, theater, improv, whether you've been in TV or modeled, any of that, that you see a lot of people transitioning from one thing to another. There are some people who get into cosplay so that they can get into modeling. It's like a stepping stone, but there are other people who step from other forms of modeling into cosplay because they like it. It's just a better way of expressing themselves, or it's just maybe a less formal way. I don't know. It'll be interesting to talk to people about this, to see how they feel about how it fits in the media. I can certainly form my own opinions, but the more you're exposed to it, the more you see how other people really form their expectation of both themselves and the community around them. When you're beginning, if this is your first convention or your 50th convention and you've just decided that you want to be a cosplayer, do not set an expectation for that first outing. Just doing it was a huge effort. So whatever comes out of that, don't make it the end of your life or your world or anything. Like, it's not the end of the universe. Sometimes people just have crappy cons. Like, sometimes you go to a convention and it's just not great. Like, the reactions aren't that great. The crowds aren't that great. There aren't a lot of, it's just the turnout. Something is just off, or you have a bad experience. That can always happen, but just try and stay open and try and have a good time regardless of what happens. Don't have an expectation when you're a beginner. Certainly don't have a bad don't expect that things will always be bad. But if things go right, or things don't go right, don't get too critical of things not going right. So when you build and create, when you're starting, you build and create for you, for them, if you can follow that form of thought. So you're not creating just for you, and you're not creating just for them, the audience, the crowds, the other cosplayers, the judgment. You're creating it for you, for them. So it's not like a gift to them or anything like that, but that you are in this space and you are being creative to represent what you are portraying because you want to be in that space and you want to be a part of it. But that's what you're doing for other people. Like, you wanted to pursue this because you wanted to pursue this so that they could see you pursuing it. Like, that's a step further than most people want to take it. Usually it's like, well, what am I going to get out of it? How are people paying me to do this? Or how am I making money at this? And it's always about that. And if it's always about that, it's not going to work very well. It has to be a little bit more deep inside, a little bit more structured than just, I need to make money at this, so I'm going to throw advertising and marketing at it, and I'm going to try and do everything that I can to get people to buy this thing, whether it has any value or not to them. So if it's all about that, it's going to be really hard. Certainly in the beginning, it has to be from a good space. There has to be more to what you're posting, more to what you're doing, than just it being about you. And always start from a place of being able to learn something. Come into it from a place of learning how to do something. So for me, I'm learning podcasts. I'm learning how to produce content. I'm learning how to develop an audience, and I'm figuring out what they want to hear about and how they want to hear about it, and even when they want to hear about it. So Sunday afternoon may not be the time that works the best, and this may change as time goes on. We'll see. Those relationships that you develop and what you can get from them in terms of just knowledge. Like, what can I figure out? What else is there to this that I'm missing? If you fail at something, if you thought the first time out sucked, that's okay, because you're going to learn something from that experience. You're going to learn what you want to do differently. You're going to learn what didn't go very well. You're going to learn. So always start from a place of learning. Everybody started somewhere, and maybe some people had a little bit more of a leg up on where they were with it when they started, because they came in from media, or they came in from television. Like, they were already bringing with them a huge following. Be really interesting to see anybody from journalism come in to cosplay or something like that. But whatever it is, like, they're bringing something into it that's related and transferable. Media, production, videography, photography, modeling, whatever the case is, fitness. They brought something with them, and there's something that can be transferred. When you're starting from zero and you have nothing to transfer from anywhere, well, first of all, you always do. You always bring something. A lot of people feel that they don't, so don't worry about it. Like, don't spend all your time thinking, well, I don't have enough. I'm never going to get any better at this because this is not what I'm all like. I'm just not that. I'm not enough. And you kind of send all these negative thoughts into your head, and your expectation becomes very unrealistic. Spend as little time as possible thinking and worrying about where everybody else is in that space when you get there, because this is, for some of them, it's all they do. For other people, they might just be passing through. This might just be the first time they tried something. Never worry about exactly, like everybody said, oh, I've been doing this for 10 years and 15 years and 5 years and this many years and this many years. Like, well, that's great. Maybe I haven't, or maybe I have been doing it for a year, and this is the first time that I've really been out in the costume. First time really trying it out this way. So everybody starts somewhere. Everybody is somewhere. But one thing to take away from this is to set for yourself expectations that are realistic for you, not to get you into a state of overwhelm where you're just freaking out about when you're going to get the costume done and if anybody's going to accept it. Certainly on a regular basis with any content that you put out, you cannot be in that space waiting for everybody else, or that you have this sense of what's expected that you can't change. So if you've always done it one way, it always has to be that way. It can never be a different way. You can never pivot. Like, it's like a really hard thing for them to do, to get away from like the same 3 or 4 cosplays that they've done and that they're known for at conventions or that they're known for in social media, and to do something completely different really is hard for them to accept. But what I'm telling you is don't worry about that, because this is supposed to be that space. It's supposed to be a safe place, just like the podcast, a safe place for cosplayers to talk to other cosplayers, to learn about cosplay, to express their feelings and concerns about the community. So one more time, I'm Scotty B. Thanks so much for being here.